Caleb Morrison expected his first blind date in years to end the same way all the others had in his imagination. Awkward silence. Polite smiles that meant nothing. A half-finished cup of coffee. Then a quiet walk back to a life that felt permanently paused. He didn't know yet that within minutes, a single choice in an ordinary coffee shop would begin rewriting not just his story, but the story of two other lives that had learned to survive without hope. He hadn't wanted to come. He had come because his sister wouldn't let it go, because she kept saying time didn't heal anything if you refused to live inside it. He sat in the corner booth, back stiff, eyes fixed on the door, like it might suddenly accuse him of something. His hands rested on the table, rough and scarred from years of construction work. Hands that fixed broken staircases and cracked walls, but could never fix the one moment that mattered most. He had scrubbed them twice before leaving the house, yet they still carried the truth of his life. Working hands, widowed hands, hands that held his 6-year-old daughter at night when nightmares dragged her back into smoke and fire. When Laura Hayes walked in, he noticed the sleeves first. Long sleeves, despite the heat. People like Caleb learned to notice these details. Laura carried herself carefully, like someone who expected the world to bump into her at any second. They shook hands, sat, ordered drinks. Then the silence came, heavy and sharp, stretching until it hurt to breathe. And then, without drama or warning, she rolled up her sleeve. The scars were severe, old burns that twisted from wrist to shoulder, skin that told a story of pain that never really ends. Her voice was flat when she spoke, practiced like a line she'd said 100 times before. "No one wants to date me, mister. I figured I'd save us both some time." The coffee shop didn't actually freeze, but to Caleb, it felt like it did. He could almost hear his own pulse. This was the moment he was allowed to leave. The moment everyone expected him to. It would be easy. He could stand up, apologize, walk away, and never think about this again. But he didn't. Because in those scars, he didn't see something ugly or frightening. He saw his daughter's face on the worst days. He saw Ava pulling her hair forward, hiding from mirrors, hiding from classmates, hiding from a world that had taught her she was less because she survived. He saw years of quiet suffering reflected back at him from across the table. Instead of leaving, Caleb reached forward and gently pulled Laura's sleeve back down. He didn't rush. He didn't make a speech. He just looked at her and told the truth. He told her about the house fire, about his wife not making it out, about a little girl who survived but carried scars the world wouldn't let her forget. He told her about bedtime tears and questions he couldn't answer, about how love from a parent sometimes wasn't enough to heal a child who had learned to hate her own reflection. Something in Laura changed then. Not all at once, but enough. The armor she wore cracked, just enough for pain to show through. She spoke about her parents, the fire, the years she spent punishing herself for surviving, about men who saw the scars before they saw her, about learning that loneliness felt safer than rejection. And then Caleb asked her something that changed everything. Not for romance, not for comfort. He asked her to meet his daughter. 3 days later, they met in a park under an open sky that felt too bright for how fragile the moment was. Ava sat stiffly on a bench, hat pulled low, hair arranged like armor. Laura sat beside her without pushing, without pretending, just present in a way that felt rare. She spoke softly about drawing, about hands that told stories, about scars that meant survival, not shame. And then she rolled up her sleeve again. Not for shock, not to prove anything. Just truth laid bare. Ava stared wide-eyed, processing something new. Someone like her. Someone older. Someone still alive and smiling. When Laura spoke about pain, it was honest. When she spoke about strength, it wasn't loud or dramatic. It was real. And when Ava finally pulled her hair back, fully, in public, it felt like a miracle disguised as a small movement. She hugged Laura like she was holding on to proof that life didn't end at fire. From that day on, things shifted. Slowly, carefully, but undeniably. Laura came back again and again. Ava laughed more. She drew faces again. She went to school without hiding, every day. Laura started wearing short sleeves. She started living out loud. And Caleb, standing in the middle of it all, realized something frightening and beautiful at the same time. He cared, deeply, in ways that made him vulnerable again. Not everyone approved. His sister worried. What if Laura left? What if Ava got hurt again? What if damaged people couldn't build something whole? Caleb didn't argue. He just understood something she didn't yet. Healing was never about avoiding risk. It was about choosing love anyway. The breaking point came on a quiet Tuesday night when Caleb walked in to find Ava trembling on the couch, breath short, eyes wide with terror. A panic attack. The kind that steals air and logic and replaces it with fear. He tried everything he knew, grounding words, breathing, holding her hands, but nothing worked. And in that moment of helplessness, he did something he never would have done weeks before. He called Laura. She came without hesitation. She knelt in front of Ava, spoke softly, matched her breathing, reminded her of strength she had already proven. She rolled up her sleeve and let Ava hold her arm, scars and all, grounding herself in proof that survival didn't mean being alone. Slowly, Ava's breathing eased. Slowly, the fear loosened its grip. Later that night, after Ava slept peacefully for the first time in days, Laura broke down. 8 years of holding everything together finally caught up with her. She admitted she was scared. Scared of loving. Scared of being needed. Scared of losing another family. Caleb didn't promise her perfection. He didn't promise safety from pain. He promised honesty. He promised presence. He promised that if they were going to be terrified, they would be terrified together. That night wasn't the end of their struggles. It was the beginning of something real. Months passed. Ava stood in front of her class for show and tell, with her hair pulled back. Laura spoke openly at work about her scars. Caleb laughed again, not guiltily, but fully. They didn't erase the past. They built a future alongside it. The scars never disappeared. They just stopped being the most important part of the story. And maybe that's the point. Healing doesn't come from pretending pain never happened. It comes from refusing to let pain decide what happens next. It comes from choosing connection over comfort, courage over retreat, love over fear. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that broken doesn't mean unworthy, that scars can be maps instead of warnings, then let it be more than a story. Let it be a reminder to show up, to stay, to see people fully. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be shared, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Because sometimes, One story is all it takes to change a life.